Hey, hello guys, today I'm going to show you guys how to create a grid-based inventory system. This is using the drag and drop built-in system from Godot. Alright, so here I have some apples, sticks, and stones you could pick up. And here's the inventory. These are pieces of cloth. We're not going to use those, so let's could right click, delete all. Or I could hold shift and drag to split in half, or I could even split with right click. Puts it in the first available slot. And then, yeah, good. Let's pick up some apples and see how that looks. We go here, grab some apples. These trees doesn't have any collision, just for sure. And then we could check how that looks now. So now we picked up 5 apples. Split it, could use one. Use and discard is doing the same thing right now because I'm not going to implement actually using anything. It's just for the inventory. Alright guys, so here I have the bare minimum. I just have the items to pick up and the player could move around and just the scene. So first we're gonna start by creating a UI. So let's use a canvas item. So let's say canvas layer, and let's drop a control node on that. Alright, so now we want a background. So let's do a panel container. Let's say panel container. And we could override that anytime. So let's scale it out a bit. And then we need a grid. Oops. Grid container. Contain 16 different slots. So you only need 4 columns. Alright. And now we're gonna create a slot. So let's create a new window. We're gonna use a texture rec for that. And then we do another texture rec on top of this, and that's gonna be the icon. Just click this here. And then we could add a label. That's gonna be the quantity. And let's call it slot 0. So we're gonna use slot as a name and 0. Just do lowercase. Alright. Now let's create a slot. Slot.gd. Store it in the UI. Alright. And let's grab some references. Okay, so grab an icon, the icon and the quantity node. So in Godot, you have built-in functions for doing drag and drop. So the first one is get drag data. Get drag data. So right here, you create the data that you need to drag around, pretty much. So let's pass that for now. And then we need to check if you can drop the data. Or this should return, return. Let's just put data here. So var data for now. And we're gonna use a dictionary for that. It's best to move around stuff. Alright, so whenever you use drag something, this gets called and it creates the data that you've set here. And then can drop data, we could test this data. So this data is the same from here. And this would be called another slot pretty much. And then this should be returning something. So let's return true for now. Returning true or false. And then call func drop data. It's the same data again. And this is a void. Let's pass for now. So whenever we're dragging something, we need to check, we need to show a preview. And you could create a preview pretty easily from the get drag section. So first we need a control node. So var, let's call it preview. And then go control dot new. And then we need an icon. So we could say var icon equals, could use a texture rec again. Texture rec. We need to set that preview to be the parent of the icon. So we could say preview add child icon. This way we need to can center it. Then we set drag preview. So set drag preview to be that preview. All right. So let's set up the, let's save this slot, save it as slot in the UI, save. All right, so now let's set up the textures. So for the bottom slot, we need the background. So I already created those with the Atlas textures. Sorry, so I call it slot background. It's basically just a faded out square. And for the icon, we need it to be about the same size. The whatever icon we're gonna drop, we have to make sure it's within this size. And we need to disable mouse input on the icon. So ignore. Alright. I could do the same for the icon as well. It's already ignored by default, but let's move that down here now, the label. And add a label settings and change its size to be something more reasonable. Let's put 00 here for now. It's a bit big, but sure. Alright, 28. And we want it to be left to right, or right to left. So we're good with this now. So now we could go back to the UI. This here. Let's add that. So slot. So it's called slot 0. We could duplicate this a couple times. There. So it's gonna be 16 slots. And then let's clean this up a bit. So we need this to be completely like this. You could do whatever you want whenever you're doing it. Let's give the panel container a better background now. So let's go to Team Overrides, Styles, Panel, and then Style Box Texture. And now I could load an Atlas texture, and then load the UI textures, UI icons. And in the regions, I want to use this guy here. Save that. And then we need to do margin expand. So where would I find that subregion? Edit. So it's gonna be this section, this, and this. So basically I'm doing a 9 patch here, so these don't get stretched. Close. There you go. Alright, and it should be working now. Let's rename this one to inventory, and then we could center this one. And it should already be open here, so let's test it. There you go. Might have messed up the subregion a little bit, but you have no control, so escape. I set that up on the character to quit. So now we need to just label these. Let's call this one UI, this one inventory. All right, and then we could attach a script to here. So here we could set up how we want to hide. So let's say func process, and we could say if input is action just pressed inventory. So I have that in the project settings as the I key. Now we want to show the UI, so we could just say show. We could do a check too to hide as well. So if hidden, oops, not hidden, is visible equals false, we want to show it, else we want to hide. But we also want to enable the mouse input as well. So input dot mouse mode equals mouse mode visible. So it could move around and select. So let's copy this, paste it here, or captured, not hidden. All right, now we could probably test it out. There you go. Should hide it at first. So now I'm actually dragging something, but I didn't set a texture for it. So let's do that. So back in the slot here, we have the icon. So that's what we want to get a copy of. Whatever texture the icon has, we need a copy of it. So say icon, let me fix something here. Let's call this P icon, so we don't get them confused. We're adding P icon. So P icon dot texture equal to icon dot texture. All right. So let's set that as, let's see, Let's throw the good old. I could just use one of these. Let's use the apple for now. Save that and then test it up. Oops, not that scene. Alright, now I'll drag. You can see that I have the apple selected. And I release it, nothing happens. So what I need to do now is center it. So I think it's about 32 half. I think it's a 64, I don't remember. So all I have to do is say p icon dot position, command by vec2, 32 by 32. Let's see if that's what it is. There you go. Now it's centered. So now, whenever we're dragging, remember this corresponds to the current slot. So we could tell this slot to maybe hide its be transparent. So let's say modulate. Modulate so equals color. Just want everything to be 1 except the last one, 0.5. But we're gonna have a new problem. So let's go here. Now you could see that it's hidden, but whenever I release it, it doesn't reset. So now we have to check if the drag has ended. So down, maybe down here somewhere, say func notification. We could say if notification, or if what is or equals to drag ended, notification drag ended. Oops. We just want to modulate back to its regular color. So let's just copy this here and set it to 1. And now we could drag now. Now let it go, resets. Alright, so let's make the inventory hidden by default. This could just do this on ready here. Func ready. Okay, so now we need to create an inventory system that we could keep track of everything, where stuff is, and if we want to add and remove items. So let's go here, add a global script here, a global folder. Could create a new script in here, call it inventory, and this is gonna be a global script that we can reference from anywhere. So let's create a dictionary that's gonna hold all the items. So var, let's call it inventory as well. It's gonna be blank. And then we need a function to initialize it. So let's call initial. We have const, and that's gonna be the amount of slots we have, 16. Now we could say for I in slots. You wanna say inventory. I'm gonna call this slot plus I as a string. I'm gonna set that to blank inventory. Alright. So that's just to initialize. We could just do this on ready. Initialize. Alright, so we know that each slot is currently empty. Next, we are going to create a func add item. So we could say item name and then quantity. Alright, so in add item, we need to we're gonna first check if the item is already in the inventory and then increase its quantity. And then if it's not, then we want to add it to the first empty slot. So for example, we need to check now. Let's say empty slot. Let's set this to nothing. Then we want to do a for loop for slot in inventory. All right, and then we see if inventory that slot that is empty. We first want to say empty slot if empty slot is equal to 0. I mean, if it's equal to that, nothing, then we want to set it to be that slot. Equal to slot. And then we just say continue here. All right. What's going on here? Equals. All right. So this way we have a reference of the first empty slot that we found. So now we continue to the next slot. So we say if inventory dot slot, inventory slot dot item name equals to item name. You want to increment it, so we can say inventory dot slot dot quantity equal increment by quantity. All right, and then we break here. All right, so we break here. We want to check if the item was added. So let's go back up top and say var, say item added, set that to false. So right here, I'm gonna say item added equals true. Now could say if item added, just want to return, else we want to get the empty slot now. So inventory dot empty slot. Where is it? Empty slot. Now we need to set it to be equals to item name, then item name, and then quantity. Now we need some kind of update for the inventory, so we could create a signal now. So signal updated, and we could say call it here updated dot emit, and then could do it here again, right here. I mean, updated dot emit. All right, so this just lets maybe the inventory know that something changed and should update the slots, pretty much. So now that we have add item, let's now add a remove item. Remove remove item. So we just need to know what slot it is and the quantity. All right, so here we need to check the slot. So we say inventory slot dot quantity decrement by quantity, and then now we need to check if that slot is empty. We need to remove the item completely. So if inventory dot slot dot quantity less than equal to, shouldn't use less than here, so equal to 0, you want to set it to empty. So all we have to do now is say inventory slot clear, and clear is the built-in dictionary function. And then we need to update again. Updated.emit. All right, now need some other functions. So we need something like if it's full, and if we can move the item. So let's create move item first. So move item, so move item. So it's the, let's see, so we need a quantity from slot and to slot. Could say var item equals inventory dot from slot item name. It's a if inventory to slot is empty, then we create that one here. So inventory to slot. It's basically a move function, but remember this. It's basically the add item function, but this time we're telling it what slot to add it to. So that's why we're moving it to this slot. So we have to be careful with these namings here. So item name equals item, and then the quantity. Let's use these instead. So quantity. It's a bit more to do, so let's also if inventory to slot but item name is equal to item. No, we just want to add the item to that. So inventory dot to slot dot quantity equal increment by quantity. All right, and then the from slot now. So inventory dot from slot, removing the quantity from that slot. Increment it by the same quantity. Okay, now else we want to swap items. So swap item, and then from to from slot, sorry. So we're gonna create that function now, and then we need to emit that updated again. Updated.emit. Alrighty. Now swap item is pretty straightforward. So func swap items, item from slot to slot. So basically we need to get the item from, so that's inventory dot from slot, from slot to inventory dot to slot. That makes more sense. So item to replace. Makes more sense. Now all we have to do now is say item inventory to slot equal to item to replace, or sorry, item to move. Instead of W here, then inventory from slot equal item to replace. And this doesn't need to update because I'm calling update here. This is only used here. All right, I think that should be it for now. We could test it out. All right, so now let's set this as a global script. So auto load, global scripts, inventory, add. Let's close that. Now in the UI, or the slot, I mean, what do we need here? So data, what we can do is, since we have the names, I'm gonna just use the names. I could say inventory dot, oops, not dot, inventory. Remember that's a thing there. Then I could say name, and we also need to grab, let's duplicate it. Duplicate. We're duplicating, we're making a copy of the inventory item, so we can add our own data to it without interfering with the inventory itself. So for example, I want to add myself to it. So slot, let's call this a origin slot where the data is coming from, and it would be self. Let's use name, sorry. And then can drop data is always true, but we need to do some checks here. I have to go back in the inventory for that. So we could just print this out. Let's go here, print data, and now we need to create some sample inventory data. So let's go back here, inventory. Let's say func create sample inventory. So we just want to loop through all the slots. Oops, not that slots. In slots in inventory. So now I want to check if I want to give it a 50% chance to place something in a slot. So if random greater than equal to 50, 0.5, we want to continue. So don't place anything. Otherwise, let's create a array. Let's call it items. It's just a placeholder. So apple, stone, what else do I have? Stick, and that should be it. Apple, stone, stick, cloth. Cloth was the last one I had there. Alright. Oops. Lowercase inventory. Alright, so now you're gonna say inventory slot. I don't know, I have a S here. Slot. It's equal to item name. We could just say items dot pick random. Then the quantity. Let's set that to rand I range between 1 and 10. Alright. And now I could just call this here as well. Create sample inventory. And we could update as well. So updated dot emit. Okay, so now back in the slot, we need to go down to this drop data section. So we want to call move here. So inventory dot move item. So we need to get that from slot from here. So what did we call it in here? Origin slot. Let's make it easier. So from slot. From slot. And then to slot would be our name. So name. And the quantity was, what did we have here? Oh, move item. Okay, so quantity first. So let's say data dot quantity. And then we need to create a function to set the data on the slot itself. So we could maybe make one right here. Say func set slot. So this will update and everything. So it needs that data and that to be dictionary. Now we need to do a few stuff here. So this quantity here, we should hide this by default. And then see, normally would set the icon here, but let's just set the quantity. So quantity dot text equal to string of data dot quantity. And I want to make sure it has some zeros on it too. So let's do a string format. 0 to D. Alright. So we're gonna have 2 spaces of zeros. Let's try that for now. So we'll go back down to drop data. Then I say set slot. Then pass that data in. And then we need a reference to the original slot. So wherever we start this drag data script from. So we had just the name, so we need the actual object. So let's say data dot dragged equals self. Now we could go back down here. We could say data dot dragged. Then we just call it set slot as well. Let's say data inventory dot inventory. And we could say data dot from slot. Alright, now we could do a test. This might not work, but let's see. It says test. Oh, we need to set it to visible as well. So here we could move. It's always true anyways. Alright, so let's go to here in the set data section. So we need to set that quantity text to be visible or show. Okay, so now we need to load up the inventory, the initial inventory, like what's in the inventory menu. So we come here and say func This is in the inventory UI. Gonna need a reference to this guy to get its children, and then load everything up. Let's see, func load inventory. I need a reference to that grid container. So on ready var grid. Let's call it inventory grid equals grid container. And let's say for child in inventory grid. We want to get the data. So data equals inventory dot inventory child dot name, and then we just say child dot set slot to whatever it is, and that's the data. So in the set slot, you want to say if data dot is empty, you want to first set the icon, the texture to be null, and then we want the quantity to be hidden. Just say hide. All right, and then just return. All right, that's fine. Now we need to set the icon here, but let's just put icon dot texture equal. We need a reference to that, so we need to create a function called something like get item texture probably, and then data dot item name. Now let's create this real quick. I'm gonna just copy over this part because it's pretty easy. Let's see, func get item texture name item name. Make sure that's a string, a good reference or dereference. So we're gonna say, let's go up here and create a dictionary with all the data. I'm gonna just load all of these icons here, so for quick access. So we could say unready var icons. It's not the best way to do it, but I'm just doing it here to keep it simple. Right, so I'm gonna just copy this over here, save on some time. I've been recording for a while now. All right, so just have a stick, and I put it in lowercase. I'm gonna change that to lower. It's all references to these UI icons. All right, so now when I say get texture, I want to return icons dot item name dot to lower. Normally you would use IDs for these, but I'm just using lowercase. All right, so let's go back in the slot. Okay, that's fine. That's all set up already. So in the inventory now, where is it? Inventory UI on ready. Call load inventory. Save and should be good. Inventory grid dot get children. My mistake. There you go. You're already set. But we need to set the text. See, that's not deleting. All right, let's go check that out. Inventory. The slot isn't getting cleared. Oops. Okay, so now we need to fix this double thing that's happening here. I forgot to empty the other slot. So say inventory the from slot equals dot quantity decrement by quantity. That's a mistake on my part. Let's go back and look at it. There you go. And whenever it's 0, you want to remove this whole slot. So let's come back here. We could check here. So if inventory dot from slot dot quantity is less than or equal to 0, which should never be less than 0, but I'm just leaving that there. Could say inventory dot from slot, just clear it. Save, and let's test that again. There you go. We're moving the 4 items around, but now we need to do some splitting. So the splitting is pretty easy. Right in the slot here, remember we're just grabbing the whole data, we're duplicating this data. So right here, you could say if input that is action pressed, not just pressed, because this isn't a per frame function. So we want to make sure it's pressed while we're dragging. I already had these here, so shift. So we need half of that. So data dot quantity is equal to data dot quantity divided by 2, and we want to round this. Round. And there's one situation where if there's 1, it will become 0, so we don't want to do that. So we'll just say if data dot quantity is greater than 1, then we can do this. All right. Then else if input dot is action pressed. This is control. This is when you just want to grab one item. So it could just say data dot quantity equals to 1. Remember, this all of this stuff we're doing here is just reference numbers. So whenever we're dropping the data now, we're gonna use these actual values. So we're not really messing with the original inventory yet. That's why I'm duplicating here. All right. And now we could save. Let's test it out. So just hi. I'm holding shift. I should only get 1 of this, or 2, I think. There you go, 1, then 1 again. And I'm holding shift, so nothing's gonna happen because I already have 1. And then I could hold control now, grab 1 of these. There you go. So now it's 8, and another one, another one, another one. All right. And then I could combine them back again. I need to update that. So let's go and check what happens when you're combining stuff. All right, so the issue was here, so I need to set inventory dot name. All right, and that should now update. Oops, this guy. So if I drag here now I put it back here. It's now 2. Drag this, becomes 4. And there's a bug now, so if I try to drag empty slots, it will crash. So we need to come back up here. And whenever we get drag data, I want to say if inventory dot name that is empty, meaning there's nothing there, so just return and don't do any dragging. All right, let's check that out again. And now we shouldn't have any crashes. All right, so now let's implement walking on these. Whenever what happens when we walk on them. Pretty straightforward though, but I have it set already. So I have this pickup script, and I give it the name of the item. So on these apples, for example, just have the name apple and the amount that it's gonna pick up. And I'm pretty much connecting on body entered. Then I'm just checking if the body is in the group of player. And then all I'm gonna do is uncomment that add item. That's a function we created already up here. And that should be all it takes to get that to work. So let's go back here, start up. Let's see what we have out ready. So we have 12 apples. If I walk on this apple now, should be 13. But need to update. Need to tell the inventory to update whenever we do that. So whenever we add an item, remember we're emitting a signal here. So we could go to the inventory UI and then let's say here, say inventory dot update head dot connect load inventory. All right, so it could be more efficient with that, but just for the tutorial I'm just doing that. Oops, just picked up a rock, so it's probably 3. Let's see, I don't have any apples, so let's pick one up. And now we have 1 apple. We got 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. Could split it up if I want. And then if I pick up another apple, whoops, there's one more. Oh well. Would go on this first one here. And then I could pick up a stick. So my sticks got total 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13. And there we go. 13 sticks. And how much stones? 4. There should be now 7. Alright. And that's a tutorial for the most part. Let's go ahead and create a context menu. So in the UI inventory here, I'm gonna add a context menu. How do I call it again? Pop-up, I think it was. Pop-up menu. And we have to give this a script of its own. And then let's connect its index_press function. Oops. On this pop-up menu. Alright. So let's say match. Okay, so we say remove item, and that should be a slot. So current slot. So right here you would probably want to do something, restore some health, maybe. It's just an example, but or whatever the item is, depending on it. Then discard one I think was the same thing, so just copy this again. Oh, I had a split. I'm gonna do the split next. Alright, let's do that. Let's do, so we're gonna have 3. So this is gonna be split. I'm gonna create that one. Split item, a split slot, then current slot. Alright, and then remove item 1, and then the last one is delete all. So inventory, remove item again, current slot, and quantity. I'm gonna create this now, so all we need to do is get a reference to the amount. So var quantity, the amount that's in that slot. So inventory dot inventory current slot dot quantity. Alright, so let's go back here and fix that. Let's delete this guy and add, this will be split will be the second one, so let's call split. And now we need to create this. Copy inventory split item or split slot inventory dot var data equal. I need to check if data the quantity is equal to 1 or data dot quantity or data is empty. I mean, oops, empty. Just want to return, don't want to do anything with that. So we first need that data to be half the quantity. So data dot quantity is equal to data dot quantity divided by 2. We want to round it. We want to make sure there's an empty slot. So if or for I in for slots in inventory, if inventory slot that is empty, or we only want to drop it in an empty slot, then we just call move item and say data dot quantity, and then, and I keep saying slots, rename this to split in slot. All right, so split in slot to that slot. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm just calling this move item again. I'm moving the data from the slot that we're splitting to that new slot. So where is it? Split slot. Let's make sure we call it right here in the pop-up menu. All right, and we're pretty much good. Let's save, and now we need the on the slot. Now we need to get the GUI input. So func on GUI input, we say if inventory dot name dot is empty. You just want to return here. There's no item to click on. Otherwise, you need to say if event is input event mouse button. Oops. We could say if event dot button index equals mouse button left or right, I should use. And then if it was released, event dot released is released. Now we want to grab that pop-up menu, and I'm gonna make it a unique name so it could pop it up anywhere. So call it, let's just call it straight. So pop-up menu dot open, and we want to pass in our name. So remember, in the pop-up menu we have this function here, and it takes the slot and makes it current slot. That has nothing, and then when it pops up, we have the option to select one of these. And we should also make it pop up right where we click too. So that make sense, right? So let's go here. And a better way to do this is let's just pass in the object itself. Let's save that, go back here. Instead of using name, I'm gonna use an object. Well, no, the current slide is a sort, and now we could set the position right here. So let's use this global position, or no, position maybe equal to current slot dot global position. Let's give it a little offset, maybe plus 32, maybe 32 by nothing. All right, so now you could probably go here, inventory, right click, there you go. How much items you have? 2. Let's discard all. See what happens here. Right, didn't need to change this to name. Remember, I just changed it to object, so all of these have to be name. A mistake. Reload that, and oh, it should be fine. Use 1, use 1. So 9, use 1, there's 8, and could delete all. Nice. Could combine these. Just split it and see what happens. Alright, forgot to break here. So once we find the empty slot, we could break. And then you just need to update. Alright. And that should be good. Inventory, could call split. There you go. Put it in the first slot. Use 1. Discard 1. Delete all. And that should be it. So here I could picking up more stuff. Added them here. So 6. There's 2 more. 7, 8, and 9. There you go. I forgot to mention too, whenever we're setting this thing here, we could call a tooltip on it. The tooltip.text could set that to be equal to the item name. And now whenever we're playing a game and we have the thing hovering over a little bit, pop up the name. So stick, apple, cloth, you get it. Alright guys, this link will be available in the description. Maybe take a copy of it and check it out for yourself and make any changes that you want. But alright, that's it. Thanks for watching guys, and like and subscribe. See you in another one.